There it goes. I was about to say, Facebook, you better go live. Dang it. Welcome back to. Hello, and welcome back to Guidance and Recovery, your sobriety journey podcast with your host, Keegan. Have you been trying to feel comfortable in your own body again? Feel life without the chaos is a little too boring? Well, today we are joined once again by a powerhouse in the healing space, Natalie Bedard, also known to many as NatNat. She is an emotional healing specialist and nervous system guide, the founder of Lift Oneself, and after surviving a life threatening health crisis in 2019, she stopped managing her pain and started witnessing her truth. She does more than help people breathe, she helps them come back to their own body and call it home. So, Nat, how have you been? And I mean, we had an awesome pre call. I do kind of wish we had that going, but uh, I digress. How have you been?
I've been well. As we said in the pre-call, life has thrown me a lot of challenges. And what I know to be true is many of us want resilience and strengthen resilience, yet the only way that you develop resilience is with lived experience.
Mm.
And as challenging as it is, and I've been kicking and screaming with a lot of some of the challenges that I've gone through, it's learning to fall back in my tools that have been developed and to continuously develop them and remind myself, what is the surrender? What is the letting go? Acknowledging what my body is feeling, feeling all the emotions, acknowledging the fear, the sense of feeling powerless, the sense of wanting to control when I know that that's its own illusion, that I'm feeling a sense of fear. So, really, it's been a cocoon of development and a lot of reflection because a lot of things have touched my personal life.
Mm.
And even in that, I've been off social media since before Valentine's Day, like around Valentine's Day. So I was very in solitude. So a lot of people were trying to reach me and they couldn't reach me. And then they
Oh
started
no.
contacting my son. Yet I came to realize, in a world we at times make ourselves available and we don't really check in with ourselves of what is our capacity.
Mm.
And this life experience, I had no capacity. So I was kind of forced to be in that solitude. And once I was in it, I saw like, okay, maybe I could, and I was like, no, I still need more solitude. So not going with the feeling that I need to connect, feeling that I had to talk to people, that I really had to take care of me and really go into further reflection and really feel out the parts that still had shadows and the parts that were ready to be revealed, to really start integrating even more uh, parts of myself and everything else. So I'm saying this because there may be a listener that feels conflicted because they go into solitude and they may not be reachable and wondering, am I isolating myself? Which you have to ask yourself because trauma does do that.
Mhm.
However, there is also healthy solitude where you are with the stillness and that you can allow the things that are in the shadows to come out into the light of your awareness and that you can integrate more with it. So just don't be afraid of taking care of you when it's needed.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good reminder. And again, I'm so sorry to hear about the struggles that you've had, but it sounds like they're working their magic and making you more resilient. And hopefully, that's just going to give you more content for more podcasts, more books, and all that. But I got to ask, what do you define as the difference of solitude and isolation, though? Because I agree, solitude is great, but too much of it might turn into isolation. Or maybe I just get too comfortable with the voices in my head, right?
Yeah. I think it's a very fine line. You see, isolation is a part where you just aren't wanting to connect with anybody, but you're also not connecting within yourself.
Mm,
And you're berating and really being in that negative bias, and everything feels like doom. Whereas the solitude is challenging because all stuff is coming up, yet you're asking yourself the question, do I want to connect? Do I have the
mm,
capacity for connecting? You're not just going off of instinct to pull away. You're asking yourself, do I have the capacity to connect? Or do I
mm,
have to take care of myself? And solitude in that way is a real fertile space to allow more growth, more intimacy with yourself. And yes, of course, you have to be very aware of the negative bias because it always is, that's one of the functions of that nervous system. Yet it's being able to continuously ask yourself the questions, am I retreating because I don't want to connect and I feel a sense of needing to pull away? Or is it that I'm enriched in my solitude and I just don't have the capacity to connect with other people right now?
mm,
And there's a difference in the language and how you question yourself.
mhm. Okay.
But
Ooh,
trauma is very known to isolate.
yeah. Yeah, it's easy to isolate yourself whenever you've been traumatized or maybe even traumatized one own self. And that whole inner monologue, dialogue kind of thing, it was interesting because I had a old conversation with Dr. Grant Crewley, and he was talking about how like, can you sit and like observe a landscape or something with no commentary in your head? And I was like, I tried, and I was like, no, I can't. And he was talking about how our minds are always wanting to give commentary. They're always wanting to have an input or whatever. And he was like, if you can do that, like no commentary for 10 seconds, you'll find nirvana. And I was like, I can kind of imagine it because for those like I got like a half second of like nothingness, and it was like, oh, this is, and then oh, this is nice. Like, shut up.
I don't think, when you do meditation, when you come in there, it's being able to disconnect from having to make meaning. That's what
Mm,
your mind's doing constantly, is making meaning. And,
mm.
that's what reality is. You're always making meaning out of something, and that's why everybody's perception is different, because their meaning is different to
Uh-huh.
validate the story. And you gotta remember, your brain always wants to be right. So we always have to challenge ourselves of being open to learn, being open for, constructive feedback, and also see that, like, our mind doesn't like the uncertainty. It doesn't like to go out into something it can't predict.
Mm,
Yet when you can allow that mind to be itself, not shut it down, because there's no way you're shutting down your mind, it's not being attached to needing to make meaning, that you can
mm.
be in that space
Okay.
where there is no meaning and you're just being.
Mm. Ooh, I love that. Huh. Okay, so just gotta be and not make meaning. Okay. Huh. I'm going to have to not think about that too much because I like to think things through until they're dead.
Is
But
that, and that's part of trauma. Like, trauma wants to analyze everything so it can predict.
mhm.
And when
Yeah.
we analyze, we're trying to find an answer, and that answer will give us a prediction. Because when you have been harmed psychologically, emotionally, physically, you come to learn, and especially at a young age, you are very quick at analyzing and predicting things. You're able to see micro aggressions, you're able to see micro emotions in people that other people wouldn't see. So you can predict things very much, and you had to learn how to do that to keep yourself safe. Because again, a lot of us weren't given a space to feel our authentic emotions, say anger, like we said in the pre-call, and sadness or frustration. a lot of those emotions weren't tolerated when we were younger, so we had to swallow them up, and then it's predicting and swallowing so I won't feel those things and I won't get harmed, and you get so caught up in all this narration that you don't even know where self is anymore. And our
Mm.
work is to come back into self because self is just is. And then it's like, okay, how do I detach? Because for me, how I define trauma is the space between your nervous system and self. So your nervous system has created more and more space so you're not connected into self because
Mm.
that vulnerability feels too threatening. So the more that you diminish the space and you're connected in self, that's where you can create a space of not being attached to make the me the meaning making machine. So your brain is always wanting to create meaning on things. So you
Mm.
wanna and I know people are like, "Space, you're confusing me." Like, no space with self and then no space with the and it's like, see trauma where self is here and trauma just creates this space that grows and grows so that you're not connected into what some people say your authentic self or your true self. And so it created this space because it doesn't feel that you are safe in that
Mm.
because we came into the world in that, but many of us were harmed or kicked out of that. So it's our work to remove that space and be in self. And once we're in self, it's creating space of recognizing, oh, I don't have to be attached to this mind that always wants to make meaning, that's constantly speaking, talking, analyzing, criticizing, looking at things, judging. But it's always, if you look at all those things, it's about making meaning. And it's like, oh, I don't have to be attached to that. And I can still feel safe.
Mm.
So a lot of us feel safe in the analyzing because it's predicting and I can create some scenarios and stories and everything else. And that's what we do. Look at the balloons. Um, yet it's recognizing, "Oh, okay, that's there, that chatter is there, but, if you try to fight with it, you're gonna snowball in it."
Mm.
It's just allowing yourself to observe it and just creating more space. And how I help a lot of clients is going into that breath. Your breath is always in the moment. And when you see the chatter, it's like, okay, just come back to the breath. Just release. Don't argue with it. Don't try to fight it. Just be aware of it. And if it's really a loud chatter, then there's some information. So possibly there's stuff that needs to be processed. Like
Mm.
acknowledging, like if, my mind was going crazy when I had the life crisis and I had to like, be there and it's like, "Okay, you're feeling a lot of fear right now, you're feeling helplessness," and letting there be space for that. Not
Mm.
just, "Oh, yeah, kumbaya, and everything's gonna be fine," and be in stoicism and nihilism, and I'm very close to those parts, yet I also am allowing myself to be human also. And so, to be human means that nervous system's gonna be, uh dysregulated and it's gonna interpret a lot of information.
Mm.
So it's not like, and, that doctor is very bang on about saying, the nirvana and what that feels like, and it's a beautiful space, and some fortunately can always be in that space. I don't think there's many that are always in that space, but they can be in that space longer and longer. However, I think sometimes people are being sold something and then they criticize themselves even more of why can't I attain that? Why can't I be in that? And I just want to give more biological information so they can work with it rather than berate themselves that they haven't achieved something or been in that space. Have a better understanding of why your system is protecting you and why that space feels like a threat. Like it
Mm.
sounds, it's nirvana and it's like, why wouldn't my body and my mind allow me to go in there? Well, it's because it was probably harmed at one point when you were younger, and
Mm,
so it's registered that space doesn't feel too safe to go into.
okay. I just had one other weird scenario pop in my head, like taking a shower and it's like, all right, I'm going to get into this imaginary argument with this person over this stupid thing and have different scenarios. Like if they say this, I'm going to say this, and then it never happens. But oh man, you just hit that one spot too where it's like if going into a space where there's not this chatter, not this analytical mind all talking, or just being able to be in peace, why is that scary? And I know in our last episode, we kind of explored the idea of like unresolved happiness or joy that I was experiencing, but it's what with what you said, is that kind of like why some people find chaos to be home again after so long? It's because going back into what is safe, quote unquote, or calm is actually a sign that danger's coming.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. It's exactly like that. So your
Hmm.
body has registered chaos as home, so that's the norm, and now to allow yourself to go into calm, rest, and peace, it's like, "Oh, no, 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 we can't do that."
Hmm.
And also, most humans are programmed to be productive
Yeah.
and to be and to rest and to allow yourself just to be curious. And that feels like a significant threat. So how
Hmm.
many people will be on the couch trying to rest, or they might be sick, but their mind is going 1,000 miles a minute about the to-do list and that you're lazy and look at all the things that you should be doing. That's an indication right there that there's dysregulation, and it's the work to settle your body in reprogramming it that rest is safe, that
Hmm.
you can give yourself the permission for that.
Yeah. Um, Thank you for hitting on the rest aspect and not being unproductive, because it it's kind of like a little bit of a mind play, to be unproductive in rest is actually more productive in the long run. And I know after our last call, you had a card for me that was talking all about rest. It was time to rest and receive. And I was like, you have no idea what I got on my plate. I got to keep going and going and going. But I found some rest, and I can tell you right now that it has been amazing. But it's one of those that it's kind of like if you don't rest, your body will choose a time to rest. But it was kind of like the universe was like, "Hey, we're going to shake things up for you right now," and I was like, "Okay, but why?" And well, you asked for it, so. uh, but on that note, whenever it comes to like making decisions, like I want to be safe, I want to be calm, I want to do this, a lot of people will sit there and kind of fight that decision or have a hard time making a decision. Is that kind of what you were talking about earlier? Like we're trying to always predict everything, and if we don't have something to base it off of, it's like total free fall, and we don't do well with unknowns.
Exactly. Uh, your nervous system is always taking from the past and information. It can be your own lived experience or what somebody told you. So it's going to predict things, and oh, if you do this, these are the outcomes. Rarely does your nervous system doesn't look at abundance. It looks at scarcity and the possibility of doom.
Mm,
So your work is to allow that curiosity to see what is possible. Like, most times when we're crossing the street, our mind will be looking for the car and looking for the dangers, where it's like, well, does it see the opening of just being able to walk freely across the road and there's no harm? But most times it won't, because that's what your nervous system is there to protect you in a world that you can be harmed. So when you have to make a decision, especially like when it's attached to finances or career, or where there's something of significance attached to it,
mhm,
you can go into paralysis with that because you want to make the right choice, because you haven't used the discipline to allow yourself to be in the uncertainty, to allow yourself to make mistakes and know that you have the capacity to bounce back, to come back from it. And, it's learning to expose yourself with little things at once. Like, everybody wants to learn to, how do I put out a fire when the house is already on fire? It's like, no, you learn beforehand how to put out, because you're not gonna think properly and you're not gonna be able to access the tools for your logic. So, it's giving yourself exposure of, "Okay, let me make a choice," like, all of a sudden, if they wanna work with their intuition, "Okay, let me listen to my gut of how to get home tonight," where there's no
Mhm.
real consequence as long as you don't have to pick up somebody by a deadline or whatever, but you just listen to your gut and you
Mhm.
see, like, "Okay, it's telling me to go this way and go that." So then you can start learning, like, which part is fear and which part is my intuition guiding you into spaces.
Hmm.
Yet choice is one that is, it can put us into a paralysis because there's so many different scenarios, but most times the scenarios that are coming up for ourselves is everything that's negative, not
Mm.
something that's possible.
Hmm.
And so our work is, have you looked at the possibilities? Because a
Mhm.
lot of times when somebody asks, "Well, this could go wrong, or this could happen, or this could happen," okay, that's true. Yet, what about the other possibilities that can happen?
Mhm.
And that's the work that we have to do to allow ourselves to open up, to allow our nervous system not to be so constricted, that there's an openness of being able to receive new information in the uncertainty, that we allow ourselves to receive new lived experiences. Yet, when you've always experienced pain, that's always what you're predicting and you're apprehensive about.
Okay. So, can we say sufficiently that new lived experiences that are positive will overwrite the old ones?
They help, yes, of course, because now your nervous system, you taught it that, "Oh, you said that this was gonna happen, but this happened." So there's
Mhm.
possibilities of other things and other experiences that can come, and that it's not always having to be on high alert. So it
Mm.
helps to rewiring, create new neurons in your brain also.
Okay. So, could someone psych themselves into having that kind of experience?
Of course, anybody could psych themselves into anything. The mind is very powerful.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean,
'Cause
I
imagine, like, I know it's funny, yet how many times did your mind create a doom scenario and you thought it was really gonna happen and it didn't happen?
probably like 9.9.9%. Yeah, very few times, if any, has the actual scenario I imagine actually played out. And the times where it did kind of line up with what I thought, it was still nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
And how many times have you allowed your mind to go into something positive and let it see the abundance?
Not nearly as many, but the times that it has absolutely blown me away.
And in a world, we're not taught to look at that stuff. We're taught to be hesitant, to be in fear, and to always be in apprehension.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm. So essentially anxiety, right?
Mhm. But
Hmm.
anxiety is healthy.
Okay. Ooh, what?
Yeah,
Huh?
anxiety is healthy. Yes, of course. If you didn't have anxiety, then you wouldn't know to be able to move or be cautious about things. It's just when we do the psychosomatic, where we're creating scenarios and hyping up our system when nothing's going on, that's the overload of anxiety. But there is healthy anxiety.
Huh.
It's,
Okay.
all of a sudden you're making decisions, but the anxiety is gonna show you, okay, well, these are different scenarios that could happen, potentially happen. And
Hmm.
then you listen to that, but then it's like, okay, but there's these other possibilities that come up. But anxiety isn't all bad, and anxiety gets such a bad rap.
Yeah.
How often are we hearing, well, did you ask the anxiety what it's trying to communicate to you?
Hmm. Yeah.
And most times you know, it's just annoying and I hate it.
Yeah. Hmm. Uh, I yeah. I mean, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety a long time ago, and I was put on Xanax, and boy, oh boy, was that fun. But that's the thing is that, like, after I stopped doing that, the anxiety sprung up, and then that's whenever my drinking really took off because that's the only way I knew how to cut it up. Because to me, trying to figure out what was going on the inside or express my emotions and stuff like that, it was dangerous work. It wasn't something that was supposed to be even acknowledged. It was like, oh, I don't have these feelings. I don't have these thoughts, even. Like, I shouldn't have these thoughts because I'm a quote unquote good person. So I have to only think like daffodils and rainbows for some reason or whatever. Like, it doesn't work that way though. And I mean, I'm loving how you're saying that it's here to inform us. And I mean, so it's kind of like all things in balance, right? You just can't sit there and put all the anxiety in a cup of tea and expect it to taste good, but maybe a little bit here and there.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you experienced all that. And this is where I have my dilemma. Medication, we're starting to see more and more. Medication has its use, yet a lot of times all they're doing is silencing the fear, the anxiety, but it doesn't go away. It just builds up. And then when the medication comes off, it wears off, then the noise, instead of it being at a 10, it's at 100 decibels. So then you have to reach for something else to self-medicate because you're not able to function
Mm-mm.
because your system is going rampant and like it's so loud inside. Yet it's like, okay, well, how do I interact with this? How do I interact with what's going on? How can I give my inner experience finally a voice to be verbalized? How can I interact with feeling these sensations when they feel like the death of me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just feeling embarrassment can be totally crippling for people. And feeling anger is hijacking the behavior that they're doing certain things that are violent, but it's not that they want to, it's just it's too intense that it just overrides their moral and value compass. And the sensitivity is just having to be s- pushed down so far that this other exterior is protecting and taking over. So, how you just explained it, there's so many people that are out there that are seeking for help, but they're getting like this kind of band-aid and here, and we're not going to get to the root, just take more medication, but then it's like we're going to medicate with more and then add more and then that's not working anymore. So then you go into other street drugs or alcohol or different other ways just to numb the intensity of what's going on internally. So I just,
Mm-hmm.
for anybody that got this far in the podcast and that's listening, I just want to acknowledge that I see you. And, you know, doing the inner work can feel very daunting. It can feel very intimidating, yet you're worth the work and you're worth coming back into feeling your own love, to feeling your own value, and to being able to validate yourself and feeling a sense of wholeness and worth within. Is it going to be challenging? Yeah. Is it going to be a lot of work? Yeah. However, you're worth it and we benefit from that. We tremendously benefit from you being able to shine your light, to finally, be able to wake up in the morning and be like, I want to be here and I really appreciate myself. And even though I might be in a mess, I'm not the mess. I'm not what the circumstances are, and that's easier said than done because when you're in the midst of it, if you don't have tools, you don't know the difference between the two. However, it's just to let you know what is possible if you start doing this work. And you're living proof of that, Keegan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been, like you said, it's a lot of work. And I want to say thank you for letting the audience know that they're worth it, that they are not a mess, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm I'm a firm believer that the light at the end of the tunnel is actually a bonfire that's surrounded by loved ones just waiting for you to get out of your shit, whatever that may be. But like you said, it in the middle of it, it feels like there's no end in sight sometimes. And it's tough. And I mean, kind of like what you said, it's easy to hear all this stuff, but a lot of people will still doubt themselves and say, "Well, I can't do that because past experiences taught me that I can't do that because I don't have the patience, I don't have this or that." And I believe that everyone does have the ability to show themselves a little bit of love, a little bit of care, a little bit of grace and compassion. And it's just we have to have people like you shining light out there to let people know that it's possible. And someone like you that can lead people to their own light is just amazing because I'm still in shock about like our last episode because like holy cow, dropping into my body felt great. And I mean, that is the kind of stuff that will help people get out of those anxiety funks or not feeling good, is to feel themselves again. And I mean, I just don't know how else to do it besides just trying something different, because had I just stuck to the alcohol, well, I already know where I'd be dead. But even if I had just got into rehab and not gone down this whole podcasting journey and stuff, I'd still be sitting there going like, okay, well, what they're teaching me in rehab didn't work in this scenario, so what the hell do I do now kind of thing. Um and I mean, real quick, I know that you have a hard stop at for today's episode. Is there some breathing techniques that you'd like to give the audience for like maybe trying to get centered with themselves real quick, like in the middle of the shitstorm?
Actually, um, I'm gonna guide the listeners to something that can feel a little uncomfortable, but if you start to do it with yourself, you'll see that you'll start to relate to your body. So,
Hmm.
if the listener can take their left hand and then they're gonna take their right hand and just rub over their hand and their wrists, just smoothly, and just connect with your skin and feel your touch. And for some, this might feel really awkward and just like, why am I doing this? I've never done this before. Yet it's really starting to learn to connect with your body, to
Hmm.
connect into the moment, to bring nurturing and to bring a soft touch to yourself
Hmm.
so that you can self soothe yourself and that you can let
Hmm.
yourself know that you're here, that you're listening, that the body can have a sense of surrender and that self-soothing and then listening to what the friction it needs. Maybe it needs circles, maybe it needs longer sh touches, maybe it needs a warm pressing. Whatever that is that your body's asking for more soothing, yet allowing yourself to feel your own touch. And what human touch does for us, it releases oxytocin.
Hmm.
So our own human touch will help to release some of those chemicals within ourselves, which is a love chemical that makes us feel good. Hugs
Hmm.
do that, a 10-second hug. It releases great oxytocin in our system. Yet doing that, where all of a sudden, when you start doing this soothing, you could be in a really difficult conversation with somebody and you can feel everything coming up, but now you can touch yourself and nobody has to know that you're doing this. But
Hmm.
you know that you're soothing yourself, that you can hear the outside conversation, but you bring your attention inwardly and remind yourself, I'm here. You're not alone. And really engage of what you're feeling, be able to articulate that, yet still stay as engaged as you can with the outer person, conversation, task that's going on the outside. So you're allowing both dimensions to be there. But
Hmm.
this is bringing you back into your body to allow there to be some self-soothing, to acknowledge like, "Oh, wait, I'm a little agitated or I'm spiraling or I'm feeling down," or whatever there may be. But this is
Mhm.
a technique of doing some self-soothing that you can do anywhere, and you can do at any time with somebody else, and, like, if you're in a heated conversation or feeling irritated, this is something that can help regulate you without somebody else having to know that you're feeling dysregulated or it doesn't feel safe to acknowledge your truth.
Hmm. Oh, wow. Huh. That's a really cool tool. I know I'm gonna have to use that. Thank you. And I mean, it almost makes me think of like programming a button of sorts, which is one that I learned from crap, I forgot his name. I'm not going to mention it now. But like so we get oxytocin from just soothing ourselves. So
Human
would
touch.
someone like hugging yourself, would that work too?
You can try and it may help, but really hugging somebody else and if you can hug like, most times when we hug, people, like, wanna let go within a second or 2 seconds. I'm a
Uh-huh.
infamous hugger, so when people try to let go, I hold on a little tighter. Yet, if you are comfortable with somebody, try it with your partner tonight, your wife tonight. Give her a hug, and when you're hugging, both of yous guys take a deep breath in and exhale.
Mm,
So that and then just another deep breath in, so you can sync your breaths together, so then your hearts are syncing together, and then you may and I'm possibly you will feel a type of surrender in your body, like
hmm,
something unlocked, and it feels more safer to be in the embrace.
hmm, okay, huh,
And meeting each other in that of, we can ground ourselves in our breath to release this apprehension that's in our bodies and that we can come into a part of sinking. And if somebody's a higher, frequency and everything else, the other one that's grounded can absorb some of that energy and help to create that homeostasis of we're both can surrender and find safety in this.
hmm, okay. Ooh, so there really is something to that saying of like, "You are my rock," of
Yeah.
sorts.
Yeah.
Huh,
It's co-regulation. It's helping that nervous system to communicate with another nervous system and allow it to recognize like, okay, it's okay. We're safe. You're safe
huh,
with all the feelings that there is a safe space just to be.
huh, okay, huh, that's really cool. So, nervous system regulation and co-regulating with another nervous system, that's something I'm gonna have to do some research on myself. Sounds really interesting.
And like I just showed you the self-soothing, yet
Uh-huh,
also, those that have a partner, do it with your partner.
mm,
That it doesn't have to be a sexual way, it's a nurturing way.
mhm,
And that you can see where there can be more intimacy. A lot of people think intimacy is only sexual, and it's not. There's
mm-mm,
so you have to be intimate with yourself to be intimate with others. And most of us don't even know how to be intimate with ourselves. We don't know how to be raw and truthful and see ourselves and accept ourselves. Yet doing this nurturing of rubbing the hand and the wrists and bringing soft touch, that you can deepen your relationship with whoever you're connected with so that we're creating safety. That,
mm,
there can be challenging conversations, emotions can arise, and we're still gonna be soft and we're still gonna be connected. We're not going to disconnect as much as sometimes we have to because it's too intense. Yet the more that we expand our capacity, the more that we can still stay engaged and connect in all of the stuff that comes up and
mm.
not, pull away or look away. So, really soft touch really helps to create that safety. So, doing it with ourselves and also doing it with our partners so that we create even more safety and connection and intimacy.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you for that reminder that intimacy is not all about sexual pleasure and that we can be intimate with ourselves. Again, without sexual pleasure, guys. Now, real quick, where can people find you if they're looking to get your help with all this stuff?
My website's liftoneself.com. That's Lift oneself.com. They can find all of my contact information, my Instagram, my podcasts. I have a course called Emotional Sobriety. I also have a discovery call that we can connect and see if, we can work together. And if I have something that you're willing, because when people come to seek me, they've already done some inner work. And the biggest part is that there's a willingness.
Mm,
Because I'm sure you can attest, Keegan, at first, there's not a willingness, but then once we're willing, it changes the way the work is received and the way the work how we approach it. When we're not willing, it's very daunting. It feels unattainable. Yet once we're willing, there's a different interaction with that. So there requires to be a willingness because there's going to be some uncomfortable and challenging positions, but yet there's a safety that you're able to do it.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder that it will be okay in the end. And, it's just one of those things that we have to be willing, like you said. And I think that that's part of the problem is people don't realize that they're tired of feeling the way that they're feeling because the rest of everyone else is feeling that way. So why shouldn't they? So, um, Nat, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure having you back on the show. I look forward to speaking to you again. I know
Yeah.
that our pre-call lasted a little bit longer than it probably should have, but that's totally fine because we get to connect, and that's what a podcast is all about. It's about making meaningful and impactful conversations.
I
So,
love, anybody that is listening to this or watching this, I would highly suggest you go back to YouTube and look at our conversation and look at Keegan's energy. Like I had told him in our pre-call, there's such a calmness, there's a brightness to him, there's more of a confidence and a really sitting in his seat of awareness, like sitting in himself and feeling good about that. So, you're living proof of what the work can do for yourself if you're willing. And like you said, there were tears in that other podcast that you allowed yourself. The card said rest, and you were like, no, no, I'll get, but then you went into a part of surrender and you got to see what the benefits were. And you
mhm.
got to see what receiving feels like for yourself. So, I just want to let the listeners know that energy doesn't lie. And if they look at that previous conversation and they look now, they can see the change within yourself. And
Mm.
so that you're that living proof of showing why showing up for yourself really does matter.
Mm. Oh, well, thank you. And I mean, it's one of those things. If you go to the gym every day, you don't really notice the muscles building, but someone else will. And I mean, it's been a few months since we last talked, so I guess I'm doing something right.
You are.
It's been an absolute honor and pleasure having you back on NatNat. I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you for just making the world a better place, one breath at a time, and helping people find themselves back home in their own body because it's amazing work that you're doing. And I can't wait to see what other good stuff you got cooking up in your brain.
Thank you, Keegan. And I just want to remind the listeners and anybody like really tuning in this far, thank you for staying here with us. And please remember to be kind to yourself because you matter.
Yeah. Yep. Everyone out there, you matter. And so with that, we are at the end of this episode. So Nat can get to doing what she needs to do. And I hope y'all haven't enjoyed yourself. I almost said a weird word there. Don't know what that was. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I hope that you found this soothing technique to be useful because I know I'm going to start using that. And I just want to remind you, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you got to love yourself first. And we'll see y'all in the next episode. But until then, much love. John.